that up. Show my face. Alright, slowly getting there. If you would like to follow along today, our problems are seen on this page here. I was going to do a few of them, and whatever's left, I was going to ask you to try on your own and see what you can come up with. But today we are going to be looking at graphing lines. Just as a review, we got to get pretty good at this before we can get to system of equations, which is going to be the rest of the week. So we really need to be good at this, because later on this week we're doing system of equations again, which is going to be where do two lines intersect. So we're going to find intersecting points of lines. So in order to do that, we need to be able to be really good at graphing lines. Today we're going to do this a couple ways. I'm going to start with graphing it from the points and then getting the equation after I get the graph. And then we're going to graph it from the points. Well, yeah, we're going to graph it from the points, get the equation from the graph, and we're also going to get the equation from the points and then graph it from the equation. So we're going to kind of alternate as we go through them, just to get more practice and a reminder of what we've been working on last week. So let me find the coordinate plane here. Coordinate plane, coordinate plane. See if this one looks nice. No, that one does not look nice. Oh, that one looks better. We can use that one. So we do have our coordinate plane, and for problem one, again, we're just following along with that sheet I gave you. I gave you a whole bunch of ordered pairs, and for problem one, I guess I didn't number them. But anyways, number one, you're looking at -3 and -5 and the point 2, 5. And what I want to do is I want to graph this, and I want to find the equation. And it's your choice, because we have to do both. You can do either one first. I'm going to start by graphing it first. So I'm going to start here. And graphing, it's not too difficult. You just plot the 2 points and draw a line through it. So -3, 5 is, that's -5. That's what, down here. So there's point 1. Point 2 is 2, 5. 2 and +5 is up here. So there, go ahead and get your line. And we have our line. We graphed it. Good job on us. Make sure everything's lined up well. And we got our line. Our lines do have arrows to show that they go on forever. You'll note this is the line of a function because it passes our vertical line test. If you recall that, every x value here is going to have one y value. So we got our graph. The next thing we want to do is get our equation. And it's not always the easiest to get it from the graph, in case you made some little adjustment errors. It looks like ours is off a little bit from this point here. I don't know if I can fix that a bit. That looks a little better, but still might be a little off. But we're going to use the points that we have to do our graph anyways. It is looking like our y-intercept is coming at 0, 1. It looks like it crosses our y-axis right here. So it might not be as accurate. We'll figure it out once we get the equation, but it's looking like our y-intercept from our graph. This is where x equals 0. I guess I'll use a yield there. The y-intercept is where x equals 0. And that looks like it's happening at 0, +1. And that's just where the line is crossing that axis. Next, we're going to get our slope. So we need slope. And again, we're going to use rise over run for this. And we'll just count from this dot to this dot, because we know those two dots, so we might as well just count those and get our slope from those two, just in case this one's not that accurate, because it is an estimated point based on these 2 points in our line. Keeping in mind that this line has negative slope to it. It is going, I'm sorry, it has positive slope to it. It is going up as you go left to right. So whatever our slope is, it needs to be positive. So I already know it's going to be a positive number. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the rise, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the run, which reduces down to 2. So I'm looking at my slope being 2. Once I got that, I can put into my equation, which is going to fit the form of y equals mx plus b. In this case, we have y equals m, which is 2x, plus our y-intercept, which is 1. So we're looking at this as our equation. And we can check that out. We can see maybe it'll go through some of these other points. It looks like it hits this point here. So this is point 1, comma 3. So if I plug in 1, so y equals 2x plus 1. If I plug in 1, I get 2 plus 1 equals 3, and that's kind of showing up on my graph too. So this is making sense. This does look like a good equation for it. So that's going from points to the graph to the equation. I'm going to do number 2 with you as well, only I'm going to go from points to the equation and then the graph, so you can see it the other way. So let's get rid of all of this. Let's bring our coordinate plane back. We're going to save that for later though. And this is number 2. Number 2 is saying yeah, you're not turning this in. It's just practice. I'm not going to give you a grade for this. I'm just assuming you should be practicing this. So yeah, you can't edit it due to the fact that your answers should be graphs. I don't want it. And then your equation you should be able to get from your graph or from the points and then do it. But I'm not collecting it. I'm not giving you a grade on this. It's just practice, because again, you need to have this down in order to do system of equations. So let's take a day to review it, make sure we understand it, and make sure we know what's going on before we move on to make it a little more complicated. So I am going to look at number 2, which is negative 5, 0, and 5, comma 5. After this one, I will give you some time between them to try it out on your own, and then we'll check it. We may or may not get through all of them, but if you think you're still struggling, there's more practice for you. And if you're still way confused after this, then we can you can send me an email and I can do some more individually with you if you need it. No, you're not going to have homework today. You should be doing your science test today. I think I unlocked your science test. So I'll give you some time to do that instead. So here we're going to go to the equation first. So let's get the equation first, and then we'll graph it from the equation. So let's hit up the equation first. Remember, our equation is going to be looking like this. Where it's going to be in slope-intercept form, so it's going to be y equals mx plus b. And remember, m is going to be your slope. And in this case, we're going to use the formula for slope of y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that is our formula for slope, so we just plug into this to get our slope. And in this case, let's call this x1, let's call this y1, let's call this x2, let's call this y2. Again, which one gets the 1s and 2s doesn't matter as long as the 1s are together and the 2s are together. So here you have y2, which is 5, minus y1, which is 0. And here we have, these are x's, x2, which is 5, minus x1, which is a negative 5. Just watch your signs. Here you're going to get 5 over 10. This does become a plus, so 5 plus 5 is 10. And that reduces down to 1/2. So here our slope is 1/2. So we already know that y equals 1/2 x plus b. Now to get b, you're going to plug one of these points back into it. So let's take one of these points and plug it in for x. Let's do, I guess the first one is the easiest probably. And that has to equal 0. So we're going to plug this in. So I'm going to take I'm going to take 0 for my y equals 1/2 times my x value, and my x value here is -5, plus b. And I want to get b by itself. So I'm going to multiply this out and move it over. So 1/2 of -5 should be 0 equals 2.5 plus b, or 2.5 plus b. Half of 5 is 2.5. And because this is negative, this would also be negative. So it's going to be -2.5 plus b. Move that over. I'm going to add 2.5 to both sides to get b by itself. Remember, this is going to cancel. Leave me with b equals 2.5. So here y equals 1/2 x plus 2.5. So now I have my equation for it. Once you get your equation, we can graph from the equation as well. Remember that our y-intercept is going to equal this b value, equals the b value. So this is going to be at 0, 2.5. So I'm going to put a dot at 0, 2.5, which is about right there. And my slope is 1/2, which is kind of a pain because we already have this as a half, but that is our rise over run. Remember, so 1/2 equals our rise over our run. Keeping in mind this is a positive slope, so my line should be looking like that. It should be going in that direction. So with that, start up the point I'm given, I'm going to go up 1, which is going to be at 3.5, and then I'm going to go over 2, which will be at 2, and I'm going to put a dot. And I can go up 1 again, over 2, and put a dot. Up 1 again, over 2, and put a dot. You really only need 2. Once you get to 2, you can make your line. It's just that my ruler is going to be smushed. It's not the dot there, and do I have enough room? I have enough room for my ruler. It's going to go there, so our line is going to look like that. And again, we're going to have arrows on the end to show that it goes on forever. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, I just showed you 2 different ways to do it, get both the equation and the graph. One, you can get the equation first, and then you can graph based off the equation. Or 2, you can get the graph first and get the equation off the graph. You should know how to do both. So right now I'm going to give you about 2 minutes here. I would like you to do number 3. See if you can graph number 3 and get me an equation for it. So these here are your 2 points. Take about 2 minutes, and I will come back and show you what I got and walk you through it to make sure you're doing it right. So again, I want you to graph it, and I want you to get the equation. The science test, if you can get it by the end of the week, that would be great. So science test by Friday. I hope to unlock science either today or tomorrow. I have to adjust a bit because I'm in a time constraint now. I thought I was going to get 2 more weeks when I originally made the chapter that I'm actually getting, because we're getting off on the 29th is your last day of classes. So you got to get everything into me by the 29th. So what's going to happen is I'm going to unlock it, and I'm basically going to be like, hey, this is the science that you need to finish. Once you finish that science, you're going to be done with science for the year. So it's going to be set up like that. Do we have to do the other science? If we have to do the test today, do we have to do the other science work? You have to do all your science work. You don't have to do the test today. I would like it by Friday, though. So I would like you to finish the chapter by Friday, if you can. I hope to give you the rest of your science work for the year by the end of the week at least. So. But we are getting down to the home stretch. Don't lose your focus here. Oops. There's our coordinate plane. All right, hopefully you'll be able to graph this. Pretty easy to graph if you're given 2 points. We're at -3 and -1, which is right here. We're at +3 and -4. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing that wrong. I want to go -3 and -1 is here. Don't get your x's and y's confused. 3 and -4 is down here. So it's looking like we got negative slope on this guy. Just connect our lines as best we can. Again, they have arrows on them, so hopefully your graph is looking similar to that. And to get the equation out of this, it's looking like our y-intercept is at -1, 2.5. Is at -2.5. So that equals our b value. And it's looking like our slope, m, again, we're going to use rise over run. And looking at it, it is going down as you go left and right. So I know this is going to be a negative number. And our rise is up 1, 2, 3. And our run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's going to reduce down to -1/2. So our equation should be y equals -1/2 x plus b, which is -2.5, and we can clean up those signs to just make it -2.5. So this should be your equation, and that should be your graph. Do we have to do 116 to 117 to 120 on the classroom? I would like you to just attach it and submit it to the classroom. It is just a Dropbox. So if we want to talk science for a minute, you can talk science for a minute. Let's hide everything. So science. So 116 to 117. I'm getting a lot of questions on. Identify your traits. That's really what I want you to do. Identify your traits. You should be getting a number from that wheel. So get a number from the wheel that's on that page. I think this is the, I don't have my science book up. One of these is identifying your traits. The other one is actually your Punnett square simulation. So identify your traits and get a number from that wheel. So do you have like a widow's peak? Yes or no? Do you have hair on your knuckles? I don't remember which one it was. If you did it on paper, take a picture of it and put that picture as the Dropbox. When you go into it, you can attach things to it. I don't know if I have, I don't see what you see on mine, but you should be able to attach it on there. If you email it to me, it's going to get in the gradebook a little later because then I got to shuffle through all my other emails. So when I catch it, I throw it in a folder, and then I kind of look through that folder when I get to grading them, but sometimes I don't catch it because everybody's emailing me about everything these days. So do you have a widow's peak, yes or no? I forget what the other ones are, like attached to earlobes, yes or no, things like that. That's just identifying your traits. Those are all Mendelian traits. Mendelian traits, meaning they are controlled by 2 alleles. 2 alleles. right? So those traits are one gene, and it's on one gene. Most of your traits are not like this, but this is where we start when we talk about them. They are controlled by two alleles, and you have one gene that controls them. So you get two alleles, one from mom, one from dad, and you either get capitals or lower cases, depending on if it's dominant or recessive from whoever. And then you just kind of identify them. So it's just picking out certain traits in humans that go with what Gregor Mendel did. Because most of your traits aren't like that, such as your height. I mean, you don't have just two different types of height. You don't have 6 foot tall people and 5 foot tall people. Chances are you're somewhere in between those two, or even smaller or taller. Right? There's a whole variety of different heights. There's not just two of them. Same with eye color. You don't have just brown-eyed people and blue-eyed people. You have different shades of eye color. Hair color, same thing. You get different shades of it. So it's not necessarily controlled by two alleles, and they're not necessarily all on one gene either. It could be a combination of genes that are controlling it, such as what height is and what hair color is. Or you could have things that are codominant as well. I'm not sure anything off the top of my head in humans that are codominant. A lot of like cats have codominance with their fur color, because you'll get patchworked cats and stuff like that. They'll have different colors to them. But that's just identifying your traits. For page 124 to 125, it is a simulation. Please carry out the simulation the best you can. You might have to substitute things for marbles if you don't have marbles, things like that. But there are 3 parts to it. And I don't remember off the top of my head what they are, but there are 3 parts, and the parents are going to change. I remember the first one is purebred. So you have a purebred, or I don't think it uses purebred. It might use the other word, which is homogeneous or homozygous. Homozygous, dominant, and a homozygous recessive. However you spell this. Right, and this one's going to be capital B, so you're going to have 2 blues in there. I think these ones are supposed to be lowercase b, and you'll have 2 whites in there. And then you put them in your Punnett square, which is just a square. Parent A goes on top, parent B goes on the bottom. And what are the possible crosses you get? Right, this one here can only give lowercase b's, so there's a lowercase b for each of them. This one only gives lowercase b, so there's lowercase b for each of them. This one gives capital B's, so you get capitals for both. Capital B's, capital B's. So this one here, in part 1, you should only be getting capital B, lowercase b. Or lowercase b, capital B, which is not really the correct way of writing things. We always put capital letters first, but you should be getting one of these two, which means the same thing. And this means that your offspring is going to have one dominant allele, one recessive allele, and it's going to be heterozygous because it'll have different alleles. The next one, it asks you to change one of these. I think it might ask you to make this one here a capital B and a lowercase b, and then do your Punnett square. If that's the case, well, then actually do the simulation. If that's the case, you're going to get this combination. And then here you're going to have 50% are heterozygous and 50% are homozygous dominant. And it's going to ask you some, hey, did your simulation match this? And things like that. It's going to go through those parts, and it's going to do some Punnett squares with you. If you need me to walk you through it or something, I probably could. I'm just not exactly sure how well I can do it over the internet here. But that's what it's asking you to do. Do the simulations, and then the third one is going to be, what if they're both heterozygous? What's this going to look like? And that's what Mendel's first one was. So if you want me to walk you through Mendel, I can too. And we'll figure it out from there. With that, you probably had time to look at the next one in math. So let's look at number 4 in math. Similar to number 2, but a little different with your signs. Here, let's find the equation first. Remember, slope equals y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. This is x1, this is y1, this is y, this is x2, this is y2. We get 0 minus negative 1, which is actually 0 plus 1, so don't screw it up. Here you get 5, what is it, minus negative 5, which again, you can clean up your signs. This is 0 plus 1, and this is 5 plus 5. So here you get 1 over 10, which is going to suck for your slope. Is that really what it came out? Did I screw that up? 5 minus negative 5 is 10. Nope, that's looking right. All right, Anthony, I will look into changing that setting so you can take it again. So your slope here is 1/10. So we know y equals 1/10 x plus b. And then we're going to pick a point to plug in. Let's pick I guess we'll pick the positive one. Let's pick this one. So 0 equals 1/10 of 5 plus b. 1/10 of 5. If you don't know, you can get out a calculator, but that's going to be 1/2. 1 times 5 over 1 equals 5 over 10 equals 1/2. So 1/10 of 5 is 1/2 plus b equals 0. So subtract it. Subtract it. You get negative 1/2 equals b. So your equation here should be y equals 1/10 x plus 1/2. That is your equation. You can go ahead and graph that the best you can. 1/2 is our y-intercept, so up a half, get that dot there, that is 0, 1/2, and then we're going up 1 and over 10, so you're going to be over here, up 1 over 10, that is our line. You should note that our slope is positive, which makes sense. And that's the best we got. And our y-intercept's at +2. So you can do it that way as well. I'm in the wrong layer here. Can look at 5. Is 4 comma negative 5 and negative 4 comma 5. Here we can graph it first if we want. We can go ahead and graph it. A lot of times we don't graph in general just because it's a pain. But it's good to know that you can graph. Negative 4, positive 5. You should see that. So there's that, looking like our y-intercept is at 0. It's looking like our y-intercept equals 0, 0, because it's going through our origin here. But let's double check it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the run. I'm sorry, we're doing slope. Which is rise over run. It's looking like our run is 8. And our rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Going right. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that should be 10. This reduces down to 5/4. So it's looking like we go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 4. That puts us at our y-intercept. So y equals 5/4 x plus 0, or just 5/4 x. Just keep in mind this is negative, so this is a negative slope. You could have also figured that out here. One of these is going to be negative. So I'm going negative on the, to go from here to here, I either go negative on the x this way, or I go positive and then negative on the x. Here to there, I'll go negative on the y, and then positive on the x. So one of those will be negative. So there's your equation, and again, your graph has arrows. Don't forget this. And we did about half of them. I'll leave the other half up to you if you need more practice. But we are kind of ending it here. Are there any questions about graphing them? We got to get really good at that so we can do system of equations, which are going to be a bit tougher, but not too bad. Do we have any questions on science as well? I'm going to figure out how to get Anthony to retake his test. Just got to find the actual copy of the test. Okay, how do we graph using an equation? Let's just make up an equation. Y equals 3x plus 5. Hey, there's an equation. Right, it fits our line form. So if we want to just go ahead and graph right away, we know our y-intercept equals our b value. And in this case, our b value is positive 5. Right? This is y equals mx plus b. Our b value is at positive 5, so our y-intercept is going to be at 0, 5. You're always going to have 0 for your x on your y-intercept because where it crosses this y-axis. So what is the line doing when x equals 0? That's literally the definition of the y-intercept. So that's plus 5, so I'm going to go ahead and put a dot on plus 5. And then I know my slope is m, so my slope here equals 3. Well, 3 is the fraction 3 over 1, so this is your rise, and this is your run. So I'm going to start at this point here, and I'm going to go up 3 on the y and over 1 on the x. So up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1, and I get my next dot there. You could also look at this as negative 3 over negative 1. So you could go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and left 1 on the x. You can get that point as well. And you'll note that both these points are on the same line. It only takes 2, so I started with that one, and no, my graph does not, my ruler doesn't like going through that point, but I'm going to try my best to go through. I'm a little off on this one. So there's your line. It's probably easier to graph from the equation than it is. Well, no, I guess plotting 2 points is pretty easy too. I mean, it's the same. Right? Any other questions? Those of you that are hanging on and actually watching this far, you are now going to be able to take your genetics test as many times as you want. So I highly suggest you do it until you get 100%. But, you know, you can do it once too. All right. So If you have any other questions, send me an email. But I am going to end it for today. That goes with science as well. I'm hoping to get science unlocked this week for the end of the year. But again, I got to do some tweaking with what I had planned because I'm going to run out of time. You're not going to have time to finish everything I wanted you to, which I guess is all right. You can still always do more science through my YouTube channel if you really wanted. I have more videos on there than I'm going to ask you to watch. So with that, I'm going to end it. I will talk with you tomorrow when I believe we're starting System of Equations. So make sure you tune in because it is a little confusing at first. But basically we're going to be graphing a couple lines and finding out where they intersect. The assignment that you have for tomorrow is pretty in-depth, but it's going to last for the next 3 days. So you have one assignment for the next 3 days, really most of this work this week. Then you're going to have some word problems, which are going to be a bit tricky at first because you're going to have to get the equations out of the word problems. So we'll be working on it. But again, if you have questions, send me an email. Other than that, good luck on the science test. You have till Friday, please. And try to get your science in as soon as you can. I know a lot of you needed more time on that, so take it. Just make sure you're working on it. And I will talk with you tomorrow.